Okay, welcome everyone. This is the Working Group Device Management Update meeting from March 3rd, 2026. We have a few topics on the agenda, mostly around ongoing work that we're doing. I'll start off with short summary of CAP status or reminder of deadlines, and then we have two more focused discussion points about specific CAPs. One ongoing, the other, I think, a proposal. If you have anything else that you want to add, feel free to add it to the agenda doc or just raise it here. Also, if we have anyone who's new to the meeting and who wants to introduce themselves, now is a good time. Just raise a hand and you can just say a few words about your interest in DRA. Okay,
I
I
can
don't.
say
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
hello, everyone. My name is Gaurav. This is my first meeting here, and I am contributing to Agree, and I'm trying to revive the project basically, and also with an idea of the Agree uses device plugins, and I think it can benefit from DRA. So I'm trying to take that initiative, implement DRA in Agree. For that, I will need probably time and again be here, ask questions, and also reach out in Slack. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, thanks. Acri, I think if I remember correctly, that is the embedded or Kubernetes at the edge management of devices, right?
True,
Like
true,
IP cameras. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yes.
it's good to see you here because that was one of the original motivations for DRA, and then nothing really happened with it.
Yeah, because
So
the original
it's
team left
yeah,
Microsoft, they moved to Fermion and the whole story. But
yeah,
I joined recently, like last year, and I am now maintainer of the project.
yeah,
But I don't know the project inside out yet, so I
yeah.
probably reach out.
I remember the early discussions around how they used device plugins to fake availability of network attached devices, and it really
Yes.
is a hack with device plugins because it ultimately
Yes.
doesn't really fully prevent all race conditions. With DRA, you can model IP cameras as a network attached or fabric attached device, get exclusive access to it to a port and all of that. So a lot of things should be simpler with it. But of course, yeah, it's work to adapt.
And
Good
of
luck.
course, it's thank you. It's also in Rust, and I don't think there's a lot of tooling for DRA in Rust. Also gives me an opportunity to learn a lot. So why not?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. We don't have any language bindings. Well, I do actually. We do have language bindings in Rust for Kubernetes, but none
Not
of
for
the
yeah.
helper code.
Yes. So
Um,
I'm working on it already.
Yeah, yeah, good. So you probably will want to look at our KSIO dynamic resource allocation repo and the different packages that we have there, because
On it.
that's how we
Yes.
currently implement DRA drivers. And some of it
Yes.
uh, does quite a few things that normal DRA driver offers never get to see, but you will have to deal with if you want
Yep.
to use Rust.
That's
So
the fun part.
I'm yeah, I envy you. I wish I had the time. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now we come after this exciting part, we come to the more boring day-to-day business. Unless someone else has anything. No, I don't see anyone. Or Tarek, you have your mic open? Nope. Good. Um, yeah, CAP status. We are in the middle of the code development phase. Actually, might should already be a little bit beyond that. Code freeze will be on March 18th. So a bit more than 2 weeks. If you don't have your PRs ready and in review, you should start to worry because people will be busy. Um, a few things have been merged. I remember just approving the consumable capacity beta graduation, for example. My own PRs for device stains, except for the graduation itself, have gone in, and the graduation can follow next. And I know other people are also busy getting the things done. Um, other organizational work or topics, we discussed on Slack that we will do a shared feature blog. So feature blog, for those who are not aware, is where our SIG SIG docs actually, or is it SIG docs? Basically the release team, but whatever the SIG that is responsible for the blog is reaching out to feature owners to prepare blog posts that go onto the Kubernetes blog to highlight what's new in a release, in addition to the release notes. This time we will have, well, I think for second or third time, becomes a tradition, a shared blog post, because we have many different DRA features. It makes sense for them to be combined, in particular when I don't know when they are related. And Morten was volunteered, I don't know, to organize that blog post. So reach out to Morten a bit closer to the deadline, which is after code freeze. I think we have time to get access to a shared document, and we'll draft something. Yeah, I don't intend to go through the whole list of ongoing topics. I think people are aware of what they need to be working on. I don't see a need to call out anything particular unless you have it. And yeah, let's talk about binding conditions.
Yes. Hi. My name is Tsubasa. I'm from Fujitsu. I'm leading the development of the binding conditions feature, and I'm currently working on introducing it into computer domain in the NVIDIA DRA driver in order to gather feedback from developers who use binding conditions. I have pushed our call to the NVIDIA repository, and I'd really appreciate it if Kevin could review it. During today's meeting, I'd like to ask Kevin 2 questions about the compute domain implementation. Would it be okay if I ask those questions here?
It's okay with me, Patrick. Do we want to use this time for that, or is there
I
better use of
I
the
don't
time?
think we have much else, so we might as well just talk about it. And perhaps I should add that this is ultimately about the question of whether binding conditions are ready for beta in this cycle, which was the plan. But we also said that we want to have some actual usage of it as intended, as it works or as it is designed. And the way how composable disaggregated infrastructure uses it is a bit odd, because it relies on failing to bind as originally selected and then recover from that later on. So this here was an attempt to come up with a use case where it's used as intended, where it goes down the happy path of just waiting a little bit with pod scheduling and then continuing with binding. And I pretty much see that as a prerequisite for going to beta. That's just my 2 cents, and we can hear other opinions. So,
Yeah, so we've been iterating back and forth. The PR has been open for a number of weeks now, and when it first came out, we iterated fairly quickly. I unfortunately haven't responded in the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks, and I apologize for that. But I think part of the reason for that, I guess we can maybe clear this up here, is that through reviewing it and through talking with other people about it, it became less obvious why we would necessarily even want to use binding conditions in this use for this use case. It seems to be adding quite a bit of complexity for not much benefit. And we could certainly, continue to investigate it and have a code path that, makes use of binding conditions in compute domains. But it's not clear if we would ever actually, turn that feature on by default. It would be more just an investigation of can we do this than a should we do this at this point. And so yeah, I guess that's the question maybe for Patrick and others then, is that if we don't ever actually plan, like we could definitely write the code and see if it would work, but if we don't ever plan on actually making use of this in any production setting, is that enough of a criteria to allow this to go to beta, or um, would we actually, would it need to actually be adopted as the solution that's being used in order for us to move forward? There's a bit of a nuance there, I guess.
Yeah. I think as a proof of concept, if it works well, I'd be okay. But already the first bullet item under this topic is making that a bit questionable, because I remember that we have identified performance issues. I think the Informer field selector is something that you pretty much want to have to distribute for work of binding node local devices properly. And if without a field selector, which is an API change, you can't do this well, because you basically need to, I think,
Yeah.
push all resource claims to all nodes, and that's pretty much to me a no-go. Not for any kind of production system. And if we find that this is a pattern that we need for binding conditions to be useful, then perhaps we should stay in alpha, figure this out, and then go beta when we have the API change.
Once that API changes there, yeah.
Or the API feature. I actually don't know how adding a field selector, whether that counts as I guess it is an API extension, so it's not incompatible, but it is something that must be implemented for it to be useful. And if you try to use a field, I think if you try to use a field selector that is unsupported by the API server, it'll fail. So we would have to have that to try to do any kind of performance analysis, or well, to even evaluate what the performance might be if we did it at scale.
Mhm.
Yes,
I-
I also think the implementation of the field selector is not easy, so we can't do it soon. So yeah, for short term, we are going to implement the resource claim informer in the controller side. Does it make sense as this implementation for short term? I'd like to ask it to Kevin.
Yeah. Shiva's on the call as well. Shiva, I think I see you there. This is about a future enhancement to compute domains to make use of this feature called binding conditions. And I've been reviewing it with Tsubasa
Yeah.
over the last few weeks. And so, the question we need to answer is, one, does it make sense for us to actually move forward with this if it's not quote unquote the optimal way to do it now? And if so, is it okay to implement in the controller of our compute domain rather than on individual kubelet plugins? And I don't think I can give a 100% concrete answer to that right now. I think
Okay.
I need to go
Yeah.
back and talk with Shiva and some of the other people who are ramping up to kind of continue maintaining the DRA driver in the long term. And so, yeah, I don't think I can give an answer on this call, but I think the bigger question I wanted to answer is what we were just talking about with Patrick, is if we don't have this ideal way of doing things now, do we want to go ahead and still graduate this feature to beta or not? I think that's the bigger question than do we actually merge the change into the DRA driver or not?
Patrick, we receive some feedback from Kevin. Is it enough to promote the binding condition to beta?
I think that's the open question here.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least
So
as it's currently implemented, it sounds like the answer would be no, because it's not something we would actually want to use in production in our driver. It would mostly be just a proof of concept of, okay, yes, we can binding conditions does um, round off some of the rough edges with how we do things in our DRA driver currently, but it's, like I said at the beginning, at least the way that it's currently been proposed and how we've gone back and forth on that PR, it adds a lot of complexity for not a whole lot of benefit. And so it makes it hard, in my eyes, to justify ever turning it on as a feature that we would run in production, even if we do have the ability to do it where we have a node selector where we can pull down the exact resource claim object that we need. I'm still not convinced that we would even want to use it then, because it would slow things down compared to how we do things today. I think up until about a month and a half ago, it was very clear that we thought we wanted binding conditions because it would sometimes take minutes for our compute domains to converge, and we didn't want the pods sitting in container creating for minutes, just spinning and failing, and then eventually coming online. But we were able to optimize our stack where now we can get thousands of nodes converged in under 12 seconds, and so it's become a much less needed, in quotes, feature for compute domains at this point. All it would do is solve kind of an aesthetically pleasing aspect of them rather than an actual problem that we have, which is, until now it was an actual problem, and now that problem is not there anymore, and didn't require binding conditions to get around. I think that's the struggle I have in my head at the moment of adopting this feature into the DRA driver, something that we make use of.
Mhm.
I'm Rashid, if you have any thoughts.
No, Kevin,
Maybe
yeah,
you're not ramped up enough yet. Maybe we need to sync offline first.
no,
Yeah.
I think I've seen the comments in the PR as well. I
Mm.
agree, actually. I think, right, I think we still need to probably thoroughly see the performance impact of this. Yeah, I don't think we are ready to kind of like go ahead with this PR, but definitely I'll also take a closer look. But
Yeah, I
performance
think
comes.
that the time sensitive nature of this is the go no go decision on do we promote this feature to beta or not. Because when's the deadline, Patrick? You said at the beginning of the call, but we need to basically decide like
in 2
nowish.
weeks,
Okay,
March
2 weeks.
18th. So
Mhm.
we could discuss it again in 2 weeks, and fans would still have a day to merge the beta cultivation PR.
Mhm.
But right now, my own estimate is that it's not ready. It's not beta yet because there are too many open questions.
Mhm. Okay.
And how does that impact you guys, Tsubasa? I know you
Yeah.
guys have been wanting this to reach beta, and is it critical for your customers to see it as a beta feature, or is it okay if it stays alpha for now for one more release?
Yeah, we have some impact because we have some customers using this feature in the future and in our production. So
Mhm.
yeah, and we need to receive the support from some vendors.
So they
leveraging.
want it to be, they want to see it graduate so that they have the confidence that it's something that's going to eventually be promoted
Yes,
as a GA feature.
yes,
Is that
yes, and
that's the idea?
yeah, it at 136.
Mhm.
I think that is a valid argument. It's not ideal, but yeah, I guess I could be convinced if someone says, well, this is good enough. I'm also looking towards 6 scheduling folks, which I think are not on the call. So we may have to start a Slack thread and just raise the
Mhm.
question there.
Okay.
I suggest you do that, explain the current state, and then ask Dominic and Margie whether they are okay with beta graduation, because ultimately it is a SIG scheduling feature. And I
Okay.
don't want to decide anything on their behalf. I can just express my own opinion. Ultimately, if they are fine, I won't object.
Yeah, and in the background, me and Shiva can keep looking into more detail about the implementation and what impact it might have in terms of performance.
Okay. I laid the thread on the Slack later.
Yeah, and it sounds like, Patrick, we can make the yes/no decision in the meeting in 2 weeks. Then, if the PR is ready to go, and it's just a matter of, okay, we decide yes,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
we hit approve, and it should be fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for your patience and understanding. It is not an easy decision. Anyway, next feature, shared consumable capacity across related devices.
Yeah, that's one from my side, just to bring it. So we talked 2 weeks ago, we talked about this one, and I just wanted to bring here that I opened the issue and the PR. And I think that's it. Let me know if I missed something or what are the next steps on this one.
It might take a while and people start thinking about new caps for the next cycle, but if people are interested now, they have spare time to look at this. Yeah, this is a good point. It's good that you're bringing it here for visibility. I haven't looked at the
Thank you.
issue or the PR yet. Just briefly, let's see. You created the issue yourself, I suppose, so you can update it. Yes, that's always a bit tricky when, for some of the other issues we have in the past created, we as working group leads have created issues, and then we were on the hook to update this description. It has caused some friction with SIG release. Now the same can happen when you drop out and someone else takes over, but yeah, that's fine. It looks like you followed the format, so it's all good. Yep. Okay. If there's nothing else to discuss, then Lionel.
Yes, hello. So I would like to discuss about the attribute in the resource slice has a reference to Kubernetes actual resource. It's something that we have been discussing in the multi-interop subproject and in the SIG network. So the idea, so I put a proposal that we have for now, and that covers these parts. And I would like to get your opinion about this kind of pattern and what we're trying to achieve. So to give a bit of background, so the idea is to represent a pod network with via resource, a Kubernetes resource. So for example, in OVN Kubernetes, we have UDN that is creating an overlay network. So let's say that the user creates this pod network and the overlay network is coming up. So we want to attach to this pod network. The idea is to use DRA for that. And for that, the pod network will be represented as a device in the resource slice. And this device in the resource slice will get an attribute pointing to the pod network, the object that the user has created, let's say Blue Network. And when the user wants to attach to this pod network, it will use a resource claim with the selector saying pod network attached to the Blue Network. So the question is, do you have, or do you see any concern or any problem having an attribute pointing to a Kubernetes resource? Or or because the idea also is to use the string attribute, and should we have a new type?
Who is interpreting those attributes?
So
if it's just being passed through, I don't see a problem with it being a string with a certain format. I don't know, the whether it's named, it's probably not namespace. So just the name of a class.
Yeah, the network class is a bit special, so it's a bit more complex than the story I told you. But the idea at the end is to discover which network the pod is connected to. So when the pod is attached to a pod or a source claim, then we will check in the status. Okay, this is the device it is attached to, and these are the attributes in the resource slice. And the attributes will say which pod network it is attached to.
Yeah, I wouldn't need to read the full proposal. The first thing, that the obvious one is that, yeah, the resource KSIO prefix or anything ending in Kubernetes IO is something that the project owns. So if you do this as a sub project, it might be okay. If it's something else, then the recommendation is to use a domain that you own. So both of these would be fine, I guess, for a Kubernetes project or Kubernetes sub project in a SIG.
Right. This was my second topic. So because
okay,
Antonio was asking, no problem is that Antonio was asking if we should have utilizing the SIG network a domain or the working group device management. Because the idea at the end is to standardize the multi-network and having some prefix probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, just this prefix issue. I think we can discuss it later. But yeah, the most important part was about having an attribute pointing to a Kubernetes resource. Is there any pattern that you observed before?
Or I think no. Typically in the Kubernetes API, object references are strongly typed, and there are quite a few of them, depending on the usage. Some of them use the resource name, some of them use the kind of the object, and kind is often a bit more user-friendly. Resource is more accurate in terms of API behavior. But ultimately, if it's something that clients know how to use, I don't see a problem. Yeah, I see a raised hand.
Sorry, you might have already said this, but who is going to be the consumer of this information? Is it going to be informer-based client or just anyone who can do like a normal GET?
No, the idea is to have controller behind the scene that will understand which pod is connected to which pod network. So this could be useful, for example, if you have services over secondary networks, over other pod networks, and you want to create an endpoint slice controller, you would need to get the IPs in the resource claim status. And for that, you need to know which network this pod belongs to or is attached to.
See, yeah, I'm curious. Are there any so anyone who consumed this information from the driver perspective, the resource slice comes in from node prepare resources call, right? And the other consumer depends on this informer. Are there any issues? Are there any anticipated issues with respect to informer being slow or this information not available in time of making this device allocation? Or maybe potentially a stale information available to that controller?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully got it because you mentioned that the permanent resource is advertising the resource slice, or I misunderstood.
Right. So, okay, let me clarify. So on one side, the driver device allocation happens through a synchronous call between node prepare
Right.
resource, right? And on
Right.
the other side, the driver also depends on this informer through the attribute, which will get the pod network from this. So
Okay, yeah, the pod network implementation would be a DR driver in that case. So it already knows the pod network that is being created.
I see. So the assumption is that the pod network is information that is already present and assumed to be in sync. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, what I could do maybe is to create a Slack thread in the device management working group, and then maybe we could have I could have more reflection on this.
It sounds like we need to catch up a bit on the proposal before we can have a solid discussion. So yeah, let's take it offline.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. One last item was just added. Pavani, do you want to talk about DRANet?
Yes. So we want to contribute AWS support for the DRANet. So I just want to understand like the next steps. Should we just go ahead and raise the PRs or?
I think you can. It's now a SIGNet, or is it actually? I think it's under SIGNode. So it is a Kubernetes sub-project now. The code has been contributed. The repo exists, and yeah, it's good to come here and mention it in case that people want to be aware. But I think we don't have Antonio here today, for example. So I think you can just go ahead and do a PR. Be aware of best practices, describe what the PR does, why it's useful, and all of that, and I think that should be fine.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Hey, I'd like to add something to that. First of all, thanks a lot for deciding to contribute to DRANet. That would be really awesome. And if there's anything that you'd further like to discuss, maybe if you have some things that you want to clarify before raising even up the PR, I think you can bring this discussion up in the SIG network working group, which is who is owning the DRANet sub-project. So maybe you can simply start up a thread over there if there's something that needs a discussion, and we can follow up over there.
Yeah, sure.
This would be the SIG network.
Thanks for the clarification. I actually wasn't aware where it landed.
Oh, no problem. No problem, Patrick.
Yeah. Well, that's perhaps a propose. We also have a proposal from NVIDIA to contribute the NVIDIA DRA driver. And this is now going to SIGNode. I don't think we need to discuss it now. There is a public mail thread that people can read up on I think it's copied in the SIGNode Google group if people haven't been subscribed already. Okay, Ale, I see you added another one.
Yeah, sorry for last minute. This topic just came up in the meeting just before this call, so I can talk a little bit about it. So currently the DRA example driver mocks the GPU devices in resource slice and just does a CDI mount. KubeVirt is another project that is supporting DRA devices, specifically planning on supporting GPU and network devices there. And with KubeVirt, what happens is just the CDI mount on the container is not enough. From the CDI mount, the KubeVirt code generates a DOM XML and passes this particular device that is in the CDI mount to the virtual machine. And because this device actually does not exist, that virtual machine doesn't come up, it goes into fail state. So there is currently exploration happening where that device in the VM will be mocked out. So it will not be an actual device, but there will be a Linux driver which mocks that device and just says, okay, I have this device in there. And that will be enough for KubeVirt to move the VM into running state. So I just want to get the community feedback if a feature like this would be welcomed in the DRA example driver, or should the DRA driver be explicitly focused on container workloads?
Just for my my understanding, the support that you are talking about is a modification in the DRA example driver, because you just said that there is something mocked in KubeVirt, which sounded like KubeVirt would do something special.
So mocked in KubeVirt, that mocking part is not specifically a KubeVirt thing. It would be a KMU/libvirt thing. So it could live in the DRA example driver, or it could live in the KubeVirt repository. It is not tied to KubeVirt, like from code perspective.
But how does that code? Who calls that code?
KubeVirt. So there is a specific component inside KubeVirt that configures the usage of that device, and once that configuration happens, libvirt and KMU stack calls that code.
Yeah, but that means KubeVirt needs to be linked against it if it's Go package. Or how does that work? Because
it's just basically additional driver. It would be a C-based driver that it would be a C-based Linux kernel driver that would add that mocking part.
Okay, but then how does the DRA example driver deploy that code? What's the benefit of having that code in the DRA example driver repo?
So the benefit would be that everything except that mocking part will be shared with the container workloads, right? So resource slice generation, consumption, etc.,
So
everything else will be shared.
So that would be a new profile where it specifically enables this particular device that then can be mocked. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. At first, that makes a bit more sense, because then there is some actual change in the DRA example driver that needs to be compiled into the binary that we are releasing. I remember some earlier proposal from Tim Bannister that the DRA example driver should have some real device underneath, but it was never really clear what device that could be, because we then would have a dependency on the host system to have such a device. I'm not sure what, perhaps I'm just thinking whether we could somehow use a generic device support to fake something that then actually is supported by KubeVirt. But I don't have anything on the top of my head. Francesco, do you have an idea? Sorry, I saw you raise your hand, but
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. No.
Okay, sorry, mic issues. So yeah, this could be a shot in the dark, but could it be a Virta.io device or a fake Virta.io device? Because Virta.io devices are quite simple. They're supported in Linux since long time, and they have minimal requirements. So that could be an option to explore. I'm not sure where should I bring this idea to, but that could be something which could be.
So I think I'm not sure. I'm not fully caught up on what kind of devices would be best. From the testability perspective, what we need is either a VFIO or a mediated device or both. And from my little research, both of those devices have very minimal requirements on faking it out. So I don't expect that to be more than 100 lines of code, the mocking part of it. So yeah, I can look into VirtIO devices if that works.
That's just an option, but a mediated device could also be fine. I think that if there is an option to reuse an existing Linux device, that would be awesome because we will just require Linux, but I'm not sure we can. But I think that from my virtualization past experience, that you will really need something exposed by the kernel to make it work, however it is the way. And for myself, I will be in support of that. I think it complements quite nicely the mocking driver and makes it actually, I would say, more complete, because now from user space perspective, now it's really fully end to end. So even though my suggestion is not perhaps good enough, I think that the idea of having a device to complete the flow is worth pursuing. That's those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so just to extend that, so the support on the benefits on this from KubeVirt perspective will be very nice in the sense that KubeVirt can then use DRA example driver to do its end-to-end testing, to do its perf scale testing, so on and so forth. So,
I certainly see value in it too. So no matter how it ends up being done, I think it would be useful. With slight preference for something that already exists, but if that isn't possible, then something that you mock sounds okay to me too. And as a reminder for everyone, we had a discussion quite a bit a while ago that the DRA example driver should have different, what we called profiles, and the groundwork for that has been done. So you can deploy the DRA example driver multiple times with different configurations, and then it emulates or pretends to manage different hardware. And we can certainly, and we definitely should have more different profiles to showcase, say, I don't know, consumable capacity. I think there might even be a PR out for that one, and others that also make the DRA example driver emulate real hardware with the exact same device attributes as the real hardware. That's also welcome, because then we can make certain profiles more realistic than what we have right now. Okay, Geeta?
Yeah, I had a question on the mock part of it. Is the isolation gonna be there or not really?
What do you mean by isolation?
So I have limited context on KubeVirt, but if I understand correctly, that is almost like a VM where there is hardware level isolation between the devices. Is that gonna be preserved or that's being mocked out?
So the mocking part of here that we are talking about here would be a device that both the guest VM and the host agree that this will be a mock device, and then once the VM comes up, even though that device doesn't exist, the VM will see the mock device and go to running state. So I think to answer your question, yes, the isolation will exist in the sense that that device will not be able to be used by anyone on the host, but then that device doesn't exist in the first place, right? So yeah, maybe there is not a concern of isolation from that perspective, just the way how that profile is used will likely be the thing that we'll have to resolve.
Okay. Just to complete the context, we hear about agentic platforms potentially requiring this level of isolation. I was thinking along the lines if this could be a tool to demonstrate that, but I'm thinking it's
For
not.
sure. No, for sure. So when the devices are passed through, there is isolation in the KubeVirt VM, and we get all the benefits of virtualization there. So thanks for that context. It's just that because this device won't exist, we will not be able to show the isolation benefits. I think a good example of the isolation benefits would be to have an actual VM run it with a device.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Okay. We went through our agenda. If anyone else has something, we can discuss it now. Otherwise, we can close the meeting early and give you back 10 minutes. Okay, last call. Nothing. Then, yeah, thanks everyone, and see you in the next meeting. See you at KubeCon, which is also coming up this month. And goodbye.
Bye-bye.